Why did Victor Aguilar decide to stay with the Penguin? The third episode of the Penguin series introduced us a little more about the life of Vic, who is the apprentice of our protagonist Oswald Cobb, which cleared up a lot of doubts we had about the character. Since the only thing we knew about him is that he was the only one who didn't manage to escape when they tried to leave Oz's car without wheels, which led him to work for him, and that he lives, or used to live, in one of the areas most affected by the Riddler's actions during the events of the Batman movie. But even though we were shown a bit of his past and his biggest recent conflict, there is something that still has us very intrigued. Why did Victor decide to go back to his boss Oz instead of starting a new life with his girlfriend Graciela? Did his boss have something to do with his decision? In this video, we will be discussing all these details. And for more videos of your favorite series and movies, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Welcome to the Oasis Geek. Before we start with this video, and to celebrate the arrival of the Penguin series, we will be giving away a Funko Pop from the Batman movie. To participate, all you have to do is subscribe to this channel and leave a comment telling us who is your favorite character from the DC universe and why. The winner will be announced on October 31st. In order to clarify this doubt, we must first understand what led Victor to make this decision. The third episode begins with Vic meeting his girlfriend Graciela, who was waiting for him because they were meeting with some friends. But first he had to take some parts to his father, who is a mechanic. Victor mentions to his father that the parts he asked for were very difficult to get, that his boss should pay him more to find them, and that it wouldn't affect him to do so since he has 3 garages. His father replies that his boss, Manny, pays him enough. An answer that didn't sit too well with Vic's sister, telling him that her brother was right, and that his boss was taking advantage of him. Victor goes on to say that he acts like wanting more is a bad thing, and proceeds to ask her if she doesn't want a better life than what they currently have. His father, who still disagrees with his son's opinion, tells him that if he remembered where they came from, he would realize that they have more than enough. But why doesn't Victor's father want to do what his son recommends if he could earn more money for his family that way? This question is one that he himself answered. In the past, Vic's family didn't seem to have much, and his father's salary wasn't enough to support his family. This situation eventually changed, thanks in part to Manny, who gave him the opportunity to take a job that paid him more. This is why we can see how Vic's father is very grateful to his boss and happy with what he has now, because if it weren't for him, his life might not have improved. The conversation between father and son does not continue, and we see how Victor mentions that his girlfriend is waiting for him to see the fireworks. Vic's father asks him if his friend Calvin would be present. Victor defends his friend by clarifying to his father that he doesn't know him enough to be judging him. This leads him to reply that he doesn't know him, but he does know that his cousin is involved in selling drugs. This leads Victor to tell him that his friend Calvin does not work for his cousin the Squid, and ends up telling him to calm down and let him go with his friends in peace. Once he is reunited with his friends, we can see that the Squid arrives with the rest of his gang, which causes Victor and Graciela to move away from the group, as Graciela doesn't seem to get along with him. Just when the show seems to start, they encounter a devastating event, and that is when multiple explosions are seen in Gotham, destroying what appears to be the city's boardwalk and flooding all of Crown Point. But this is not what is really happening, as these are events from the past. Specifically, we are seeing what the Riddler caused in the Batman movie, and how much the poor class families of the city suffered. Victor lost his family and everything he had thanks to the Riddler. But in what way does this event still affect Victor in the present? We will see the answer to this question later, as we see how the Penguin is preparing to go to look for the much-anticipated shipment of the new substance that would be allegedly revolutionizing the drug business forever. When suddenly, he receives a call from Salvatore Maroni, a call that he answers in his room, leaving Victor with the obligation to receive and distract Sofia Falcone while he finishes. They talk about several things, one of them being how Victor met Oz and how he ends up working for him. a conversation in which Vic was not entirely honest for obvious reasons, and Sophia mentions to him that Oz used to be his driver. Once the Penguin leaves his room, he goes off with Sophia, leaving Victor alone, an opportunity the teenager uses to invite his girlfriend to the apartment. Once she arrives, Graciela tells him that she is moving out of Gotham and starting a new life in California. She goes on to tell him that she is proud of what he is doing, and that she is very happy for him, as that is all he has ever wanted. But if not, he could leave with her so they can both start over together. How does the young man feel about this proposal? We can see how he is happy for a moment, but we quickly see how his expression changes into concern. Victor tells her that it won't be that easy since he's not sure if Oz will let him go, since he's like some kind of gangster. This isn't the only thing he tells her, as Vic goes on to explain that he's seen things he's not supposed to have seen, and if he leaves, he wouldn't know what his boss would be capable of. Upon hearing this, Graciela tells him that if that's the case, he definitely shouldn't stay. Victor, who seems to be convinced by his girlfriend, gives her money to buy him a bus ticket and to stay somewhere nice. A decision that could have ended up being the beginning of a very nice story of how a couple of young people, after losing everything, start from scratch in another state and overcome the horrible condition in which they once found themselves. In a way, Victor could begin to understand what his father was trying to tell him the day of the tragedy, since it can be said that he would be going through something very similar to him. Will we be seeing history repeat itself? At the time, it seemed that way, but in order to do so, Victor would have to go through the difficult task of talking to Oz first, while waiting for Oz and Sophia, who are trying to get a meeting with the head of the Triads. We see how Victor is practicing how he will break the news to his boss when he notices a police car parked behind him. The officer orders him to get out of the vehicle. Once outside, we see how Vic tries to ask what he did wrong. The officer lets him know that he parked in a loading zone, that he needs to turn around and put his hands on the car. It is here that Vic notices that the bag full of bliss is slightly open, and you can see the vials without any difficulty. The officer checks him out and asks him about the car, when all of a sudden he finds the pay Oz had given him. Very curiously, the officer tells him that it is a lot of money for a kid his age. Victor thinks fast and tells him that he doesn't know what he is talking about since he doesn't have any money on him. The officer agrees with these words, accepting the bribe and telling him that as soon as his boss arrives, he has to leave. Will this interaction affect Victor's decision? Later, we see Vic having dinner with Oz, and he excitedly tells his boss about his experience. While they are ordering, a waiter interrupts Vic when he is trying to order his food, which is difficult for him because he is a bit of a stutterer, causing Oz to get angry and tell the waiter not to interrupt him. Vic tells him he doesn't have to do that for him. Oz tells him he agrees since it's something he should be doing, and says fuck what they think, make them wait and take up your space. The Penguin goes on to tell him that he has fire inside and he should just let it out. We can see how these words get Vic thinking. This is when Oz asks him about his parents and what they did for a living. Vic replies that his mother was a domestic health assistant and his dad was a mechanic, but that he was a chef at heart. Victor starts to tell him about his dad's love for cooking, how much he would have loved that restaurant, and that he doesn't think his dad ate at many restaurants like that. Oz tells him that this is not right, that the world is not set up for the honest man to succeed. He goes on to say that being a mechanic is a great job and should be the American dream, a story with a happy ending, but that the world doesn't work that way. Once they get the meeting with the head of the Triads at the Penguin's nightclub, we get to see how Victor is in charge of delivering the bliss at that club. This is where we learn that Victor suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder thanks to the Riddler's actions, letting us know that Victor is still affected by what he went through. Roxy, one of the girls in charge of getting customers for the drugs, tries to help him when she notices that he is on the floor, as well as all the merchandise. Reliving what happened that day leads him to go to the bathroom where Oz finds him and gives him the news that the Triad accepted the proposal. As they are about to leave to celebrate, Victor receives a message from his girlfriend who is waiting for him at the bus stop. Oz asks for the phone and asks if he is going somewhere with his money. He goes on to say that they are very close to achieving their goal, and he wants to throw it all away for a girl. Vic tells him that it's not her, it's everything. He does everything he asks, or at least tries to, but he doesn't know if he should keep doing it. Oz tells him that if he wants to leave, he is free to do so, and Vic replies that he can't leave. Oz realizes what's really going on and asks him if he thinks he's holding him hostage or a prisoner. But if we remember how it is that Vic ended up working for the Penguin, mixing it up with the things he's seen and done, would it be wrong for Victor to think that way? Oz is a person who gets upset easily, and by this point in the conversation, he was already more than upset. And we know this because he proceeds to point a gun at Vic and asks him if that's how he feels. This isn't the only thing, as he also asks him what he had before he met him. He clarifies that he had nothing and that he was a loser. Oz goes on to say that he gave him money, clothes, a place to sleep, and that he has all the opportunities in the world with him, but asks him if what he really feels is that he is being held hostage. Oz ends up telling him that he could leave whenever he wanted, but he decided to stay, so he better start asking why. The Penguin doesn't let him answer and tells him that he stayed because he wanted something better and wanted more of what his father never had. Vic replies that his father would be ashamed of him, which leads to Oz answering him by saying that shameful is working your whole life with nothing to show for it, and that the world isn't made up of good and evil, that it's just survival, safety, pleasure, and that they don't give awards for dying in the projects. This continues until eventually Victor leaves the establishment, taking Oz's car with him, and arrives at the bus stop where Graciela was waiting for him. Vic decides not to leave and returns to the nightclub, arriving just in time to rescue him from the mess he was in. So why did Victor Aguilar decide to stay with the Penguin instead of rebuilding his life with Graciela? Victor decided to stay due to a mixture of fear, loyalty, and his own desire to achieve more than his father ever could. Although Graciela offered him the opportunity to escape the dangerous life of crime to start over, Victor feels trapped by his circumstances and Oz's control over him. In addition, his experience with poverty and the trauma he suffered thanks to the Riddler have scarred him deeply, leaving him with a need for security and power, which he believes he will find by working for Oz. The Penguin's manipulative speech reinforces in Vic the idea that in this world, only the strong survive, and that staying with him offers him more opportunities than the uncertain future he might have with Graciela. Although he seems to doubt, his ambition to have something greater than the life his father led pushes him to stay by Oz's side, thus closing the possibility of a quieter life with his girlfriend. But tell me, what do you think about all this? Do you think this is the reason why Victor decided to stay? Share your opinion in the comments. And for more videos of your favorite series and movies, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You are on The Oasis Geek.